And he took to wife Judith, the daughter of Birthright the Hittite, and Bashemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they were a grief in the mind of Isaac and Rebekah. You know what that tells me? Man, he didn't care. His son didn't want to marry a girl. The Hittites were the enemies of God. They were polytheistic. They had many, many idols. As we would put it in our day and time, they weren't Christian girls. He went out into the world and found whoever had pleased him. Not only did he find one, he found what? And he found two. Guess what his brother's going to do? He's going to find four. What happened? The boys are a mess. You know why the boys are a mess? It's because Dad's a mess. Dad didn't start out being a mess, okay? But sometime there, all of a sudden, he began to say, you know what? I don't care what God thinks. I'm not going to do what God tells me to do. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm going to do what I think is best and what I like to do. That's all that's important. And what ends up happening, man, it destroys his family. So you have a dull father. Guys, don't be a dull father. Never put yourself before God. Every decision you make, and again, using God's Word as a guide and praying about the major decisions in your life, man, that should come before the Lord all the time. You need to pray to God. You need to get God's guidance for the direction that you take. Be spiritually minded. Seek God first. Do what God shows you to do in His Word. Be driven by faith, not by feeling. He was a dull dad, and it ruined his family. But then you see a deceptive mother. Now, nowhere here do you see something. You know what I notice is? Here she is. She's listening, eavesdropping, so to speak, listening what's going on. Now, what I want to understand here is, I'm trying to think, in one of my favorite old-time commentators, he's been in church a long time, maybe some of you have even heard this guy. His name was John R. Rice. And John R. Rice was trying to justify what she was doing. And I couldn't grasp what he was trying to say here. He was saying that her ends justified the means of what happened. But you know what I think? That's showing absolutely no trust in God. That the bottom line was this: could not the same God who and again, it wasn't an immaculate conception or anything, but the God who blessed her with twins, the God who literally appeared to her and told her that there's this war going on between two nations in your stomach, don't you think that God could have made sure that Jacob gets blessed? Did she have to go through this entire scheme to get back at Isaac? No. All she shows is she can't trust God. You go here, and she was undermining the authority of her husband. We go here, and we don't see, and it's something I noticed here, and this kind of works for both the wife and the husband here. The simple fact is, you never see Isaac talking to Rebekah about what's going to happen here. You never see Isaac coming to Rebekah and saying, "Well, I'm going to bless Esau. What do you think? I can't see anymore, and I don't know if I'm going to live or die. What do you think? Should I bless Esau?" You don't see that. You see her doing what? Finding out about it, eavesdropping about it, and you see this woman going about, and she's doing an end run on God. Folks, the ends never justify the means. And ladies, your husband may be a spiritual zero. I hope not. But the ends never justify the means. One great old preacher named Dr. Bob Jones used to say this, college named after, do right until the stars fall down. All you can do is control yourself, ladies. You can, if you try to scheme behind your husband's back, you know what? That's going to bite you. Now, I'm not saying if he's not a good husband, and I'm not justifying him for not being a good husband. And guys, you need to be good husbands. You need to love your wife, and you need to treat her right. Your boys need to see somebody loving his wife. But it does not justify the means for you going behind your husband's back to try to get something done. No matter if it's a good thing or not. That's what she tried to do. She just simply had to trust God, and she didn't. Why? Because she lost her faith. This is the same faith that she once had. Now, not only do we have a dull father, which I think is the whole key to everything that goes on here, you have this deceptive mother who doesn't love both kids equally, which is a whole nother sermon. But you have a deceiving son. Teenagers, listen up to this one, okay? He is going to lie 6 times to his dad. Notice what he sees here. In verse number 11, Jacob does not say to Rebekah, his mother, and chances are, again, and I'm not going to call him a mama's boy, we don't know, okay? But I am sure, it just makes sense to me that sometime, being as close to his mother as he is, his mom did not tell him what God told her. That just makes sense. God told me that your brother, older brother, and I just watching kids and having kids, we could probably picture the scene. Big, hairy, strong brother out there in the woods running, coming home. Guess what he's going to do to his little brother? Whack. Right on there. He probably picks on him. People are people. We'd agree with that, don't you think? He's probably picking on his brother all the time, and little brother, dad says, "Oh, knock it off, son." And little brother goes crying to who? Mom. There. God told me one day your brother's going to serve you. Trust Jesus. Now we're older. Little brother's just is nothing but a conniver. Till literally almost toward the end of his life, you read the story of Jacob, he is nothing but a schemer, a conniver, and a trickster. In the next chapter, he's going to try to trick God. He tells God when he sees the stairway to heaven or the ladder to heaven, he tells God, well, I'll serve you if you bless me. You do right by me and I'll serve you. He's trying to make a gamble with God. And here we go. Here's a son. He isn't worried about whether what he's doing is right or wrong. He's worried about, am I going to get caught? He even tells his mom, very first thing he says, well, Mom, we shouldn't do that. Let's just trust God. And he says, well, I don't sound like Esau. I don't look like Esau. And I don't smell like Esau. I'm going to get caught. Something's wrong. What he ended up doing is he lies to his dad 6 times to get what he wanted. And you know what's going to happen? It's nearly going to destroy his life. Because the rest of his life, it's going to happen. That's all he's going to do the rest of his life. As I say, he goes, he tricks, he goes, and he begins to live with Laban. You know what he does to Laban? Laban tricks him, gives him his older daughter first, but eventually he's gonna steal Laban's fortune. He's going to steal his fortune. Not only is he going to steal his fortune, he's going to use his daughters to steal their landmarks or their idols. And what those idols were they were possessions. They were deeds to lands. When you study out what's happening, he's going to use his wives to steal from their own father. He's going to go and start wandering back into the promised land, and his brother's coming after him. You know what this champion for God does? And he puts all of his wives and his children in front of him, sends them over the river to face Esau. What a gutless guy. And you know what he's trying to do? He's trying to appease his brother. And it's not until that night where God literally comes to him and cripples him that he changes. What we need to understand is God is in control. And if you're a teenager today, it is always wrong to lie to mom and dad. I don't care the situation. I don't care what's going on. You be honest with your parents. But maybe you're growing up and you're still kind of like Jacob. You're a schemer. You try to get the angles right. I'm going to try to weasel my way in here, or do this at work, or do that. You know what? Just do the right thing and trust God and let God work things out. He thinks he has to steal the blessing. If he would have just did the right thing, guess what? God would have given him the blessing. We have a deceiving son, lying 6 different times. We won't go through all the lies for the sake of time, but one last thing here. I tried to find a better word than dumb, but I looked off in the D's. I wanted to alliterate today. Couldn't find it. Esau was the dumb brother. You know what? Plain and simple. Esau reaped what he sowed. He reaped what he sowed. You know what? If he would have never sold the birthright, which he despised, he might have had an argument. You know what? If he would have tried to not go out and marry two heathen women, maybe his mom wouldn't have been so upset. He reaped what he had sown. All of a sudden, you see that toward the end of this chapter, you see this big he-man, this man who kills everything, this man who's rough and rugged, coming in, and he's bawling like a baby. Asking his dad, well, you got to have 2 blessings. You got to bless me too. He reaped what he sowed. Now, when we look at all these things, we see somebody dull spiritually. We see somebody deceptive, trying to use the idea that ends justify means. We see somebody scheming their way to try to get what they want. And then you end up having somebody that reaps what he sows. That applies to everybody. And where you are at today, and you might... I wanted to really apply this to the family, and I hope you see the application. But you know what? Where you're at today is right there. Somewhere. He reaped what he sowed. And then ultimately, what do we have? We have a destroyed home. You think it was cool that night when Rebecca went in the tent to talk to Isaac? Are you kidding me? I have a feeling Isaac probably never forgave Rebecca for this. Do you think Isaac ever trusted Rebecca again with any important details about it? Probably not. Man, you have a destroyed home. Now you have what happens. You have a brother